Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Daredevil. This is originally the series that appeared on Netflix over 2015 to 2018. Ran for that was 3 seasons. Yeah, 3 seasons, and introduced us to a whole new street level era of Marvel comics on screen, on TV, where the proper MCU was putting out Avengers films and Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, things like that. Netflix had Marvel had a separate TV division that put a bunch of their shows on different streaming services because Disney Plus didn't exist yet, and all their money and focus seemed to really be mostly in the cinematic universe, especially since Iron Man took off like gangbusters. And under Jeff Loeb, they sort of did some stuff over in the TV area, and they knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. I really enjoyed uh, Daredevil and Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and even Iron Fist to some degree, and Defenders, of course, which wrapped up a storyline that actually starts all the way at the beginning of this, at the end of this first episode. It pays that Defender series actually pays off this very first episode. So, yeah, the groundwork was laid from the beginning. And of course, this also introduced a series, characters and a series, 2 seasons of The Punisher. So by John, with featuring John Barenthal, who we know from The Walking Dead's first season, and a bunch of other things, but primarily The Walking Dead for us nerds. So yeah, this is, if you don't already know, this is not the Ben Affleck Daredevil. just we're clearing the air, and it's also not the Daredevil we saw in those Hulk TV movies way back when. I think there was the early '80s ish because he also met up with Thor at one point. Yeah, there's Thor and Daredevil, and not sure who else that Hulk met up with. Lou Ferrigno Hulk. Yeah, but those were bygone days that we do not talk about much. I do remember them as a kid. I liked them. Yeah, but this has a lot more. It's because it wasn't Disney, and because Disney owned, yeah, Disney owned Marvel by that point, but it was still, these characters were off in another realm. And because the incident, as they call it in this and all through the other Netflix series, without actually saying, well, the Avengers did this and that or the other thing, because while the worlds are shared, they the movies didn't really ever recognize TV shows, while the TV shows hinted at the movies. So they're connected, but they're really not at the same time. Um, this could technically be an alternate universe from the 6-1. Well, comics are the 616, and they said it was the 616 in the movies, but I don't believe it. It's the MCU is a different universe than the comics. It's as if the comics don't exist in that universe. It's weird. I know I'm getting off track, really off track, but yeah. So we got Daredevil, played by Charlie Cox. We have Karen Page, played by Deborah Ann Woll, which you'll recognize her from True Blood. And we have what's his name, Eldon Henson. I know him from a bunch of other stuff. He's always the funny guy in the room. He plays Foggy Nelson, Matt Murdock's best friend and partner in Nelson and Murdock, their law firm that just got off the ground. And of course, if you don't already know, Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, is blind. But at the same time, the accident that took his sight, a chemical spill that happened as a result of a car accident in New York City, uh, gave him enhanced senses. That is, he can smell, he can hear, he can touch at levels that we can't comprehend. It's beyond understanding. He has sort of like an echolocation power that allows him to sort of physically see things, uh, but not actually see as we see with full spectrum of color and light and everything else. He is more fully aware of his surroundings than we are. in many cases who are sighted. So yeah, that's a superpower in a sense, but his real superpower is getting his butt kicked for the most part, but kicking butt at the same time. He gets taken this Matt Daredevil really gets taken to the grinder a lot, and I can't, if I remember correctly, each season, I think in this one it's episode 4, has a hallway fight, and they kind of made that a thing. Especially, it's just like a long uncut fight where Daredevil just punches and kicks and does brawls his way through a hallway full of bad guys, and it's just a breathtaking to watch. So yeah, if you haven't watched these yet, and because you're like, oh, that's on Netflix, I don't have Netflix, and it's it's on Disney Plus now. And it's, yes, it's only for people who are a little bit more mature. I think it's not part of, if you have like a kid, access, that that's locked out of that, I believe, because there are some pretty mature themes in this. This is TVMA. It's got profanity, and it's a little sexier than your average, Ms. Marvel or Hawkeye or WandaVision or anything else. Not sexier than Loki, because Loki. But it's, yeah, it's it's got its share of adult themes. So yeah, you won't be giving this to your kids to watch anytime soon. It is very violent, and it's the great thing about it is that it's not superhero violent in the sense that it's laser beams or punching through a wall into, or knocking somebody into space or something. It's literally a guy who learned martial arts while blind, and can kick butt with the best of them, but at the same time take a tremendous amount of punishment, and somehow get up the next day and people are like, oh, you have another bloody nose or a black eye? That's weird. How do you always keep doing that? Well, I think his explanation is that his dad used to be a boxer, battling Jack Murdock, and I guess he goes fighting as well. That's his excuse. I think he just goes and gets some boxing, some exercise, and it kind of gets out of hand, I guess. Walks into a fist because he's blind, right? He has a lot of good excuses for getting around things. And of course, hey, you know what? He is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe proper now. Charlie Cox, thankfully, is taking on the role because, again, he's loved as this character. He defines this character for this generation, especially. It's not corny. It's very well grounded. It's street level superheroics here. It's, while Spider-Man is also street level. It's Spider-Man's a little bit more fantastical with the spider powers and everything else, and flipping around everything else. This is a guy who, yes, he jumps around a lot, and he has an incredible amount of prowess in a fight, but he's not fighting aliens or giants, frost giants, or anything else. He's a guy punching guys on the street for kicks, well, for justice. It's a show is introduced nicely. You just kind of get an idea who Matt Murdock is. We get to see his origin briefly. It'll build out. They'll build more into that, how he got his abilities later on in the series. I only watched one episode because I've already seen the whole series and I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward. I'm going to make sure I put this on my watch list. I mean, eventually I'm going to rewatch all these things, Jessica Jones and everything else, especially because I love Kristen. So yeah, it's if you saw this guy show up in Spider-Man No Way Home and you're like, why is everybody cheering? Well, here's your answer. He's Daredevil. That's Matt Murdock. He's a lawyer, and he also kicks butt on the side. So his Catholic guilt keeps him from doing anything too heinous, but he doesn't feel too good about some of the justice he takes into his own hands, because he's a lawyer at the same time, kind of breaking the same laws that he upholds. So there's a bit of conflict in there. It's a little bit of drama. But yeah, he's a interesting character, and you get to see him challenged eventually up against the Punisher, up against Wilson Fisk. Which, if you watched Hawkeye, and and you watched it with other Marvel people that maybe you're not as marvelly as the rest of them, or marvelous as the rest of them, and they went yes when they saw the Kingpin in Hawkeye. Well, Wilson Fisk. Well, now you know why, because, well, you'll hear his voice in the first episode, but you'll see him fully formed later in this season, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. So, yeah, and he's a guy who he actually really loves the role, and he's a big guy. And the Kingpin in the comics is exaggeratedly big, super wide, burly, but he's also a fighter, and so yeah, it's. I think these are guys. This is a group of people who are really interested in coming back to these characters, because we got a Daredevil series coming up, and I'm sure I'll make that as part of my premiere. I think it's coming up in 2023 or 2024. I'm not sure which. I think we're getting 18 episodes. That's pretty dang great, I think. Yeah, I think it's 18 episodes. And it's called Daredevil Born Again, which is a name that's a very important name in the Marvel mythos for Daredevil, because, yeah, there's a storyline called that. Whether it'll follow that exact storyline, I really don't know. I really doubt that, but we'll see. We have a lot of characters who have appeared in this series that don't exactly follow the exact storyline as the comics, and that's all right. It doesn't have to be exactly like the comics, because, one, certain characters get to stick around a lot longer, and two, if a lot of us already read the story, why would we want to watch an exact adaptation of the exact beats of the comic when you have so much freedom in these universes to play with the characters as you like, and maybe improve the stories in some ways as compared to something that was written in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, whatever. Yeah, it's as unlike like a Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. Those are novels, and those are kind of set for the most part in their full arc. In a sense, there's a beginning, middle, and end. When it comes to comics, comics are ongoing. They've been going on for almost a century now. 70, 80 years for Marvel Comics. 85 now? 80 something. It's almost 85 years for Marvel Comics. And so, yeah, it's the great thing about the multiverse and the multiverse saga, which we're now in, apparently. Hold on. Let me show you. Yep. I don't edit. Don't crop. Don't edit. We're in the middle of the multiverse saga right now. And I got my hat. That was the Marvel Comics Hall H panel, and that's what they gave us. So for being there. So yeah, it's the multiverse is bringing characters from all over the place together, and Daredevil is part of that. So yeah, we get to see him in the proper MCU, and that's pretty awesome. And this is where it all starts. This counts. It's not it's not as good as we liked it, and we're going to forget about it, and we're just going to change it up. No. This counts. And the great thing is, it's not the kind of a show where it has to count. Sure, these introduced characters. What happens in this film? I mean, the series doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on what happened in Hawkeye with Wilson Fisk, technically. But you get an understanding of who that character is a whole lot better during his brief appearance in Hawkeye. And as we get to know him in the new Disney Plus series, it'll be interesting to see how this series informs that. So it'll be interesting to see how that all fits together. I don't think these will be shuffled off as forgotten. Oh, it was just the Netflix stuff. No. If anything, it's considered maybe an alternate reality, and things are a little bit different. We don't know about his supporting cast coming back in the new series, so yet. We haven't seen anything about Foggy or Karen. We just know that Matt and Wilson Fisk will be back for sure. I want to hear about Daredevil. I want to hear about the Punisher next. We'll see. Let's pick tomorrow's episode.
206.
206. So if you didn't get that, I highly recommend watching this, especially if you're a Marvel fan and for some reason have skipped over this, for whatever reason. It's violent. Yes, it's not for kids, but it is still good old Marvel fun. All right, we got a movie. We're finally we did like 3 documentaries in a row. Now we did a series, a docu-series. Now we have a regular series here, and now we have a movie. And I have to admit, I don't know if I've seen this. It's a classic. And there's a lot of classics I haven't seen. If I did, I just erased it from my mind. Like I've seen the TV series this is based on, but I don't think I've fully seen the movie. I know the characters. I just don't think I've actually seen the movie in the theaters. We're gonna watch Hercules from 1997. I've been dying to watch this, especially since we've watched this series a couple like last year or something like that. There was a TV series on the Disney Channel, I think, that spun off from this, or it was a Saturday morning cartoon on ABC or something. I don't know what it was, but it spun off the Hercules movie, and now we finally get to watch the movie from 1997. We're watching Hercules in the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.